Welcome to this week's episode of For the Love of Chiropractic. In each of the past episodes, we've covered at least one of the important points that it takes to run a successful chiropractic office. But in this episode, we're going to talk about what does the doctor do, what does the practice do when the doctor needs a vacation. So let's get started. Welcome to another episode of For the Love of Chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Freeman. I've been in practice for over 30 years, and I continue to work in $1 million practice that I built, ran, and sold. I've taught, lectured, and coached our profession, and helped so many chiropractors build the practice and the life of their dreams. And now, I want to help you do the same. So here's today's show. In the introduction, we planted the seed. You know what? We all show up to work every day. We work hard. We see the patients. We make sure they get everything that they need so that they get better, so they get the health care that they need. We take care of our staff. We do the things that they need to be done, the paperwork, helping with the scheduling, the training, the hiring, the firing, so many of the things that go into running a successful chiropractic practice. But every once in a while, it's time to take a vacation. It's time to step back. And by the way, taking a vacation is not optional, it's mandatory. You know you need that for your psychological health, for your physical well-being, possibly for the well-being of your relationship with your significant other, the relationship with your kids. There's so many reasons that it's absolutely necessary. Years ago, I had a chiropractor say to me when I was working 7 days a week, working to build a practice as fast as I possibly could. He said, Robert, even the sharpest axe needs to be taken out of the woods once in a while to be resharpened. So part of the reasons vacations are important is to resharpen your axe so you can get back and be even better than you were before you went away. Same chiropractor had said to me years ago, you'll know it's time for you to take a vacation when you've decided absolutely, positively, perfectly, completely that all of the patients are crazy. That means you need a vacation. And part of the challenge when taking a vacation or taking any time out of the office is there's so many different reasons why we might need to be out of the office and then working to balance all of them. Whether it's a family vacation, a couple's vacation, a guy's trip or a gal's trip, or seminars, whether it's a continuing education seminar or a business seminar. All of these things require you to not be in the office doing what we professionally do, which is taking care of patients. So hopefully by this point, you now understand and get it. Yeah, you're right. I do need to take a vacation from time to time. I do need to be out of the office. But what do you do about the office? What do you do with this other love of your life, the office? What do you do with this baby, your practice? How does it get cared for while you're not there? So first of all, do you get coverage for the office or you just close and not be open on those days? Interestingly enough, there are actually some states here in the United States that allow the chiropractic office to be open even when there's no chiropractor there for certain periods of time or a certain number of days. In those offices in those states, the patients can still show up and receive all of the different therapies, or at least some of the different therapies, that they get when the office is running at full speed. Obviously, what they're not getting is the chiropractic adjustment, but their therapeutic exercises, the physical therapy, the modalities, all of those different things in those states can be done even when the doctor is not there. But there are many more states where if the doctor is not there, if there's not a doctor on premises, then the office is shut down. Nothing is being done to care for patients at that point. So if that's your state, you have a couple choices. You could just close. And then what happens? Well, the patients miss their appointments, their care gets delayed, their progression gets delayed, and your patient consistency will start to drop off. I am not a fan of that at all in the least for any reason, because how can you sit there and tell somebody that their care is incredibly important? Well, except for when I go on vacation, then your care is not that important. Plus, if the person is in any level of pain and discomfort, How are you telling them, you know what, you'll be fine, just deal with it till I get back? That's not fair. That's not what doctors do. So another option that I've seen doctors do over the years is they'll stack their patients. You know what, we're going to see everybody on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then I'll be out of the office Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and we'll stack all the patients for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday the following week. And while that works for your 3-time-a-week patients, it doesn't leave them any flexibility in case they can't get in, something happens in their life. And now you're playing the negotiating game of, well, we'll just do 2 days this week. We'll figure it out. We'll make it work. It's not ideal for the patient's care. Obviously, a lesser example of that is if you're just taking a long weekend. Well, we'll see all the patients on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and even Thursday. Be out of the office Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then back in the office Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday if you have Saturday hours. And again, that's good and that works. In smaller practices, it actually works pretty well. But again, not the ideal. Another option that I have seen doctors do over the years is they make a deal with another doctor down the street who's a friend of theirs to refer their patients to them while they're out of town, almost like coverage, like the medical doctors do. Oh, you're on call, I'm on call. The challenge with that, and it can work well, the challenge with that is what happens when the patient comes in and suddenly they like your friend better than they like you, or they like you better than your friend. Now you've got a problem where the patient says, well, I want to see you, not him, or I want to see him, not you. And it's very difficult in our profession to remain friends and professional when you have patients who want to swap back from one to the other. Because let's face it just doesn't feel good. But we do have to do something. You can't just close the doors because that's called patient abandonment. If you have a patient who's under your care, you have to be able to provide care to them even when you're not there. So another option, of course, is to hire a vacation doctor. In smaller practices that don't have an associate, or if it's just a husband and wife team, the two doctors working together, and again, they don't have an associate, I'm a huge fan of hiring the right vacation doctor. So now let's spend some time talking about the vacation doctor and how to make that work. Because the first objective that I've heard over the years talking to different doctors is, I don't want to hire a vacation doctor because my patients won't see them. I don't want to hire a vacation doctor because they're not going to do the things I want done with my patients. And the answer is, if that's what's happening, then you're not training and setting the situation up for a win. So let's go through how to make this a win for everybody. Number one, it has to be the right vacation doctor. If you know a doctor who can cover your practice, he's a friend of yours, someone who's maybe been in practice for a long time, or maybe even not been in practice for a long time, but it's somebody who can come in and do the things that you tell them to do, your patients are going to get the care that they need, and that's what's important. So steps 1A and 1B are to plan your vacation, figure out which days you're going to be out of the office and which days you need coverage for. And the second part of it is who the doctor is going to be who can then cover those days and shifts for you. And then once you've booked the trip and it's all ready to go and your friend has said, yeah, they can do it, or you've hired the vacation doctor, about 3 weeks ahead of time, you start telling the patients, oh, in a couple weeks, I'm going to be out of town for a couple days, but a good friend of mine, a fantastic chiropractor, is going to be covering the practice, and you'll have an opportunity to meet them and work with them as well. You're going to immediately start to gauge who's on board and who's going to be like, well, maybe I can just skip that time while you're gone, doc, and we can just talk about that to smooth that over, to make it work. So you can explain things like the consistency of care. And it's very similar to when you're going to the gym, you continue to go on your regular schedule to build the muscles that you want, to be in the shape that you want to be in. If you're a runner training for an event, again, you train on a certain schedule. If you're just trying to lose weight and drop a few pounds, again, you diet on a consistent schedule so that the predictability and the outcome is what you expect and when you expect it. And unfortunately, often the patient still says, yeah, no, that's okay, doc. I'll skip next week and catch up with you when you're back. So we want to reframe that And again, the things that we're about to say have to be absolutely true. So you can say to the patient, this person that you really like and are helping with their health, so, I understand that you may not want to see Dr. Smith while I'm gone, but you know what? Dr. Smith is an expert in taking care of conditions just like yours, your neck, your back, your disc, your sciatica. And it's actually fortunate that I'm going to be out of town because I want him or her to see you, and that way we can talk about your care and make sure you're really getting everything that you should be getting. You're getting a consultation, you're getting a second opinion without even having to go anywhere else. So this is going to be what's best for your health. I'm really excited to see what he's going to say and help us maybe get you better even faster. I think you should also go on to say things like, oh, Dr. Smith does vacation work, does coverage work all the time. This is what he chooses to do. By the way, when I say he, obviously, Dr. Smith could be a he or a she, but for simplicity's sake, we'll simply continue to say he. So with doing coverage work all the time, he sees lots of different patients in lots of different practices. It gives him a really unique view of patient care. It's one of the reasons that I so value him as a friend and value the opportunity for him to come into the office. In fact, I was really lucky to be able to cover the days that I'm going to be out. It just worked out so perfectly. I'm really anxious for you to see and meet him. And when you frame that properly, your patient compliance, them continuing to get the care that they need, will go way up. It's what's best for the patient, it's what's best for the practice, and it can put your mind at ease that your patients are being well cared for while you're out of the office. And as I said, we're having that conversation with the patients 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time. And the reason that we're doing that is because when it gets to be 2 weeks out, on whatever the typical busiest day in your office is, if there's a typical day that your maintenance patients, your wellness patients come in for care, in my office, it was always on a Wednesday. I love seeing my wellness and maintenance patients on Wednesdays. It's the middle of the week. We've got wiggle room plus or minus if something comes up or we need to nudge it a day or we need to add a visit in because there's something special going on. So I recommend Wednesdays as that maintenance wellness day. But then 2 weeks before you go away, have Dr. Smith come in for an hour or two to meet some of these patients, introduce them. They can have a quick chit chat with him. And then again, it smooths it over even more for a more seamless transition for while you're out of the office. So for sake of example, let's assume that Dr. Smith is coming into the office right after our lunchtime. Okay, so in the first part of the afternoon shift. You can tell the morning patients, oh, you remember I said I'm going to be out of town in a couple weeks for a few days. My good friend, Dr. Smith, he's actually coming in today around 3 o'clock to meet some of the patients and see the office, and I'm going to make sure that I review with him exactly how we should be treating you because your care is incredibly important. You can also even invite the patient to stop back to meet the doctor if they want to. And by the way, they never do. Once in a while it happens, but incredibly rarely. They like you, they trust you, they know you, and the fact that you're putting your stamp of approval on this guy, that's good enough for them because he is a good, qualified, licensed doctor. By the way, make sure that the person that you're bringing in is indeed licensed and has a current license. In my time working on the licensing board here in my home state, as well as coaching other chiropractors, on incredibly rare occasion, I've known doctors who have hired a vacation doctor only to find out after the guy had come and gone that he didn't have a valid license. He had forgotten to renew it. He had forgotten to get it registered with the state or whatever the different cases were. Make sure you actually see the license, and you want to make sure that the person also has malpractice coverage or they're covered under your malpractice coverage. And that changes carrier to carrier. So you want to make sure that that's taken care of also. So we've talked about the scripting of how you're going to tell the morning patients that Dr. Smith is coming in. Obviously, then there's a period of time when Dr. Smith is in the office. Oh, this is my friend, Dr. Smith. He's a great doctor. We've known each other for years. In fact, he adjusted me this morning, or he adjusted me when he first got here today. He does a terrific adjustment. And then take a few minutes and tell Dr. Smith about the person you're currently working with. Oh, Dr. Smith, this is Miss Barb. She is one of my favorite patients. She's been a maintenance patient for years and years. She originally came in with a neck issue, and there was a C5 disc, and there's an osteophyte there, and with full spine diversified adjusting, she does really, really well. We also check her left shoulder to make sure that it's doing what it should be, because of the way she takes care of her grandchild, sometimes that shoulder will shift a little bit. Barb, do you have any questions for Dr. Smith? Oh no, Dr. Smith, I'm looking forward to see you, in 2 weeks. Fine. And they leave. And you do that for several patients. Yes, it's going to slow you down a little bit, but it's going to make the practice move so much better when you're not there. Dr. Smith sees firsthand how you take care of patients, what should be done, your exact procedures. And then in the afternoon, after Dr. Smith has left, and the patients continue to come in through the afternoon rush hour, through the crunch time, and as you finish up that evening, you can tell them, oh, you missed meeting Dr. Smith today. You'll have an opportunity to see him in 2 weeks when I'm out of town. He's a great doctor. The people that he met really seem to like him. He's a good guy. He's been a friend of mine for years. And I really want him to take a look and see what's going on with you so he and I can discuss you also. He's an expert in exercise physiology. He's an expert in palpation. Whatever the skills are that Dr. Smith is really good at, you can reinforce that with the patient, that you're thrilled that they're going to have the opportunity to see and meet him and have him take a look at them. Now, the other thing that we want to do sort of behind the scenes is we've now built up Dr. Smith as an expert to the patients that he's going to see. And while you're out of the office, I want Dr. Smith to be telling the patients how wonderful I am. I want Dr. Smith to tell the patients how wonderful you are, how lucky they are to have you as a doctor, how lucky they are to be a patient in this office. Because as Dr. Smith, I can say the primary thing that I do is vacation work, is cover offices for doctors who need to be away for a certain period of time for certain reasons. And I've got to tell you how wonderful this office is. The staff is terrific. I love when I get to come here and work with them. And the patients, oh my God, your doctor's patients are some of the nicest people that I've ever gotten to meet. They are just the nicest, most wonderful people. I love when I get to come to this part of town and take care of these patients, because it's a great experience and the people are so wonderful. It becomes a mutual admiration society. You've built up how wonderful Dr. Smith is, and that's awesome, because again, Dr. Smith is a great doctor, because you wouldn't have somebody who's not a great doctor cover your office. I know you wouldn't leave your patients in incompetent hands. And when Dr. Smith can then turn around and tell the patients how lucky they are to have you as their doctor because of how much you care, how much you know, the things that you do, the patients are even more appreciative of all the extra care that you provide. And by the way, you're going to need to tell the vacation doctor these things that they need to be saying, because they won't just naturally want to be saying it until they've been reminded that this is part of the job. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about the practice that does not have an associate. What about the practice that does have an associate doctor? Okay, Dr. Associate, you're going to handle the practice while I'm gone. And while they may have the opportunity to do that, for a half a day or for 1 day on a weekly basis while you're not in the office, so you can start to teach them and gauge their management skills of how they run the office, because it's a skill for an associate to learn. We're not talking about an entire week. Can they step up and run the practice in your absence with the power of a senior doctor? Again, you want to train them ahead of time that what's to be expected and what they should be doing and how they should be approaching that. Things like, I believe it's the doctor's job to be the first one in the morning and open the office up, get the heat going or get the air conditioning going, open the blinds, turn the lights on, and all of those things, the opening day procedures, as well as helping out at the end of the day, and the doctor should be the last one out the door in the evening. You've shut the ship down. We've turned off the engines on the airplane. Okay, it's now safe to leave the ship. because that's what it takes to be the successful of the big successful practice. And if you're not teaching your associate that, I believe you're setting them up for future failure. Because as the owner of the practice, you know what rests on your shoulders is everything. So to teach your associate that everything rests on their shoulders while you're gone is an important thing for them to learn. And by learning those things, who knows, they may decide, you know what, I don't want that level of responsibility. I never want my own practice. I really like it here. I'm going to stay here forever and work with this great doctor who's teaching me all these things. Or perhaps they do leave one day, and then ultimately they have you to thank for teaching them all these things that they need to know. So now it's just a couple days before you're ready to leave the office, before you go on your vacation. You've prepared the patients, you've prepared the staff, you've got your passport ready, your spouse, your kids, everybody's super excited about going away. The last thing that I want you to do is to set a goal that you hope the practice will meet with some sort of reward. So maybe it's a number of new patients that'll be processed. Maybe it's a certain number of re-examinations that can be done. Maybe it's a certain number of regular patient visits that get seen in a day or the week that you're gone. There's some measurable goal, because record keepers are record breakers. There's some measurable goal that you've been looking at and keeping. You know what the most number of re-exams done in a single day or a single week has ever been. Okay, maybe that's a good goal to have the associate doctor break. And by looking at this, they're really working towards something. The eye is really on the ball, again, so everybody wins. And assuming they do win, and they should if it's a reasonable goal that you've set up, there needs to be some sort of reward. Maybe it's a pizza party that you take everybody out to. Maybe y'all go out bowling one night as a team when you get back. If you have an all-female staff, maybe you send everybody out to get a manicure done, your manicures and pedicures, something that the team's like, yeah, we did this. But here's what's really, really important. If the goal is to do 20 of whatever we're talking about, re-exams, and you get back and they did 19, I don't think they should get the reward. Oh, you came so close. It was one more, because now they've learned the goal is the goal, and either we hit it or we don't. Close is good, but it only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, or, as my college roommate used to say, also thermonuclear weapons. But that's a whole nother story. And while it doesn't feel good to not reward them because they came so close, you've set them up for the next time you go away to work a little bit harder, because winners win and winners get things done. And that's the more important lesson that we're trying to drive home here. So as we close out today's episode, maybe it's time for you to start scheduling and looking at your next vacation sometime later in the year, so that you can be the best doctor and keep helping people get better. All right, and that's our show for today. If you have a question about today's show or your own practice, feel free to reach out at fortheloveofchiropractic.com. Before making changes to your practice, be sure to seek legal advice regarding those changes and regulations in your state. For the Love of Chiropractic is an RGF production, all rights reserved. And thanks for listening. Original music provided by Hunter Rich Music.